Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I am super excited for this interview that I'm hosting today because I have been waiting for this busy mujer to really make the time out of her busy schedule to share some amazing insights with us. And a lot of you know who she is because, hello, who doesn't know who she is? Linda Garcia, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much, Lucy, for having me on your podcast. I'm delighted to be here and get to talk money with you.
I love that. Now, Linda, I've read your book. And
Thank-
your book was one of the very few books that I've read that I actually felt seen. And I'm not gonna lie and pretend that I was just like rainbows and butterflies. Some of the things that you were describing on your book were so personal about your journey, but also things that happen to a lot of us Latinas. And so I want to start by asking you one thing. Because on step one of your book, Eight Steps for Communities of Color to Conquer the Stock Market, you talk about the importance of waking your money wounds. And
Mhm.
not everyone wants to do that. So, why should people even think about waking, quote unquote, those monsters that are hunting us for generations?
Yeah, I firmly believe that it doesn't matter how much financial literacy we take in, if we are not taking an honest look at how we currently have an emotional relationship with money, then we're not going to be able to break through our internal limitations towards building generational wealth. Most of us come from we're a child of immigrants, we're immigrants ourselves, and so we are learning to navigate what is the United States of America. And the United States of America is built on the concept of capitalism. It is a country where people can come here from anywhere around the world. That part is controversial and questionable, but this country is made up of immigrants where people come and have the ability to create a business, whether that is cleaning houses or cutting grass or inventing a streaming service. Whatever it is, we have the capacity to invent it and then see our dream come true. And so if we are constantly navigating from the space of scarcity and the inability to see our own personal power and how we navigate money ourselves, then having this American opportunity will not be accessible to us. And so for me, that is absolutely step one. And I know it's hard and it's mortifying. There was a point in time where I would rather be seen completely unclothed and walk through the fire before looking at my own credit, at my own net worth, looking at my debt. But I think it's something that is normal to feel that way, and it's time that we start to address that first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've learned as I embark in my journey of becoming the first gen wealth builder in my family was that I could have the information on budgeting, paying off debt, like the best strategies. But if I wasn't addressing those wounds that, believe me, I did try to avoid, I was just going in circles, right? And then I started creating the false narrative of like, well, I must not be good with money, or maybe wealth is not for us, which is something that you also touch on your book. You talk about waking up to the false money beliefs, which in our community, especially as children of immigrants, or some of us like immigrants ourselves, we have this belief that wealth is not for us. Why do you think that belief is so ingrained in our community, Linda?
You know, I I don't know that I have the exact answer to that, but I think I can speak from my perspective of coming into this country in terms of watching my parents build their own savings accounts or just even just building their own confidence in the type of work that they were doing. I watched my mom clean houses. She would babysit. She worked in a factory. She would make tacos and sell tacos at the factory during lunch hour. And so a lot of what I saw is this idea that my mom, as a Latina, felt inferior to her bosses, which were always white folks. And so there was this this idea that she came to this country to almost to serve, right? To be a servant to whatever job it was. She was never in the place of power. And I think she began to identify her place of power once she started to understand real estate. At 27 years old, despite my mom having those types of jobs, she was able to see the importance of real estate and purchase her first home at 27. To
Wow.
me, that's astonishing because I didn't buy my first home until I was well into my 40s. And she would constantly tell me, si yo pude, tú puedes y más, and I was so insecure about that because I had my own personal wounds of watching her do her job. So I think what my mom taught me, and that's the experience I can speak from, is watching her move and navigate through the jobs that she had, and then slowly but surely start to build her confidence. As I mentioned, she did clean houses, and I watched her turn into a housekeeper, um, and still have the same job and turn into an entrepreneur. I watched her clientele. I watched her keep her clients for over 20 years. I watched her turn into an entrepreneur, whether she wants to admit that or not. She became extremely intelligent when it came to tax strategy. She became extremely intelligent, understanding that when the real estate market comes down, this is when you buy. And if there's an opportunity and your real estate is doing exceptionally well at the height, is when you sell, which was opposite what people around her were doing, especially given the 2008 market crisis. But as I mentioned, she started at 27 years old. And so she is she's like the first wealth warrior that I, ever met and got to witness. But I had to witness her break free from her limitations and begin to believe in her own personal abilities and understand that she was capable of not just cleaning houses, but of turning it into an actual business and start building her own wealth.
I love that. And I'm only imagining what it's like for you as a daughter to watch your mom be so savvy about investments and opportunities. And you talk about taking care of her clients, which a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand the value of repeat customers, the value of long term commitment to your clients. And so, as you're saying that, I'm getting goosebumps all over my body, just thinking, wow, that's that's why Linda is also so powerful, because when you see another woman, another Latina that steps into the power, it's likely for us to feel safe and saying, yeah, I want to do that too as well. Now, Linda, I got to know you as the financial educator that you are, the speaker, the founder, but also as I was going through your book, I came across this paragraph that I was like, my goodness. I'm not the only one. You talk about how you stay in a toxic job because it was safer to have the consistent paycheck. And a lot of the Latinas right now find themselves in that position. So, what would you say to those Latinas that are like, the stable paycheck is worth it, is worth the security and the stability? Because you said, no, it's not for me.
Yes. You know what I think the key to this was for me, like what I understood, and it completely blew my mind. It revolutionized the way I currently think. I identified that the person that was signing my checks, which at the time was at Netflix, Reed Hastings, our CEO, he had come up with an idea. He came up with a concept. And yes, he may have certain privileges that I may not be privy to. And maybe it's the thought that I have that I'm not privy to that makes me not privy to those privileges. Maybe those privileges are indifferent and it's about what I believe my limitations are in comparison to his. And so I was coming to this realization at the same time where I noticed how dependent I was on the check that was being provided to me at that specific point in time. And I started to think, where did this check come from? Where did this money come from? And it came from an idea that he had in his head to one day have a streaming service. That was just an idea. And so I really quickly understood that I have access to ideas as well, that my brain is no different from the capabilities and accessibilities that his brain has, that nobody can come and police my brain and tell my brain this idea is too big for you, except for myself. I have the ability to do that, and I have been guilty of doing that myself. And so once I removed the policing of my brain or the limitations of what my brain could and could not think, I really started to see things from a completely different perspective. And I started to understand that our brain has the capacity to come up with an idea that then creates value and can be exchanged for money. And so from that point forward, I was almost on this mission to think about my $1 million idea. What was my $1 million idea going to be? At the same time of wondering what my $1 million idea was, it was right in front of me the whole time because I was enamored with the stock market. I was enamored with researching the stock market. I was watching my portfolio grow what felt to me like exponential levels, and there was this place where I had accessibility to money. So sometimes our ideas are so big, obviously we're right in front of them and we can't see the full span of them. And so, you know, my $1 million idea was my course and my book, and it has made me more than $1 million. And so now it's like, what's my multi-million-dollar idea? What's my billion-dollar idea? So that is what completely revolutionized the way I thought, was the understanding that money is generated from an idea, and that I have to be willing to ask my brain for these ideas. I have to be willing to co-create with my higher self on something that can provide value to my community.
I love that so much. And our brain is one of the most powerful assets that we have, but a lot of us, I say a lot of us because I was also there in the past, like this scarcity mindset will always find an excuse. And you actually talk about this on your book. You talk about scarcity mindset finds an excuse, a wealth warrior finds a way. So, what were some of the steps that you took to listen to the brain, right? Because you understood that the
Mhm.
idea needed to come from you, that the idea could make you $1 million, but what was the dialogue that you were having with your higher self? Can you walk us through that? Because I love talking about the brain and
Yes,
money.
absolutely. Me too. Me too. I'm the same. So I first had to acknowledge what my current thoughts were. And people might think that's easy, but that's actually the first step. And it's also one of the really hardest steps because we think that we are our thoughts. So sometimes it's really hard to step away from our thoughts and be like, oh, I really have a negative thought pertaining to XYZ. Like when you're about to pay a bill, what is it that you feel? Do you feel fear? Do you feel anger at the idea of having to pay this bill? Like, what is it that you feel? And so, being able to separate yourself from whatever it is you're feeling without judgment and in just simple observation, I think is the first step to moving through that. And then it's some I want to talk a little bit about science here. I came across a study called the reticular activating system, which is a filter in the brain that's the size of about a bean that sits in the back of our brain. And that is a filter that is meant to protect us. So, anytime we come across any information, or actually, we are coming across a lot of information at any given time, our brain can't process everything that is accessible to us and available to us. So, one of the ways that the reticular activating system makes us extremely efficient as human beings is that it only filters information that we are focused on. So, if I am focused on a problem in my life, like I can't pay this phone bill, and I'm constantly saying, I can't pay this phone bill, our brain has access to a multitude of ideas on how we can get the phone bill paid. There's so many ways for us to get a phone bill paid. Open up your closet and sell some stuff on Poshmark and you can get your phone bill paid, right? But because we're solely focused on not being able to pay the phone bill, our reticular activating system triggers and tells the brain, Linda doesn't care about focusing on paying her bill. Linda doesn't care about any ideas on how to solve this problem. Linda cares about the problem. So we have to continue to show her the problem. She cares about how she can't pay her bill. So the brain is very submissive. And it's important for us to make sure that we are monitoring the thoughts that we have so that we can potentially invite a different narrative, which is, how can I pay this bill?
Mm.
How can I pay this bill? And creating that continuous narrative does open up our minds to the answer. And all of us have experienced this where we're thinking of something and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the answer shows up. That's not by mistake. That's not, I know we like to call it manifestation, but that answer was always there. That experience was always there. We were just never open to it. We were closed from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also comes from the conditioning to believe that we have to work hard for money because that's
Yeah.
what we saw growing up. Like my mother was a housekeeper. I was a housekeeper. I was doing all of these things that, most Latino families do because that's what we know. But then the moment I got my first dividend pay from the stock market, my mindset was just like completely revolutionized. So I want us to go there because you do such a great job at inviting people to invest in the stock market. You're a stock market investor yourself. Your nenes are investors as well, which I love that part. So how old were you when you first started investing?
When I first started investing, I was 33 years old. So I'm 44 years old now. So a little bit over 10 years ago. So it wasn't that long ago, I feel
Okay.
like.
I'm gonna have just like a what do you do? Because you look amazing. I'm like 40. What? Like really? I'm 40. I'm gonna be 41 this year. But I'm like, wow. Like is it that you worry less about money that is making you so beautiful now?
Honestly, I think it's just us being Latinas, to be honest. I think we're blessed with some good genes.
Yeah, I'm like, wow. Hold on a second. Let me just say that now, Linda. A lot of people, and we were talking about these before I hit record. Like a lot of people see us and they think, like, yeah, they became successful overnight, and now they are investors and they have all of these things. But they don't understand the fears that come when we invest in the stock market. So, can you tell us what were some of those fears that you had when you first invested? And when did you actually allow yourself to say, the stock market works for me and I'm going to trust it?
Yeah. So, at the core of fear is the unknown. Every time we feel fear, it's important for us to understand that it's not necessarily meaning that we should stay away from it. I think what's really important to establish here is that fear has helped us in our DNA in the past. If we had to run from a lion back in the day, that's one level of fear. And I think that now, as we feel fear, I think part of us still thinks we're running away from something that is going to eat us, like a lion.
Mm.
And I think now, with the way everything has changed and we're not facing lions on our day to day life, it's important for us to know that fear isn't bad. I wouldn't necessarily call fear bad. If anything, I would look at fear as one of the most positive experiences that we can have. I currently use fear as my internal compass. If I feel fear, in the depths of fear, where I am having a visceral reaction, where my body is actually reacting to the fear that I feel, then I know that this is a space I need to conquer. This is a direction I need to head in. I use it as my internal compass. I study what it is that I am fearing and I move towards that direction. This is a rule that I have applied in my life. And because I have applied this rule, I have been able to experience some exceptional moments in my life, including becoming an investor, including watching my portfolio climb to over 500,000, including becoming a state representative here in Texas. There's so many incredible experiences that I've had because I have been willing to be a student of fear and understand what it is that I am afraid of. And so when it comes to money, I think that we feel a lot of fear. We are afraid of losing money, even if it's just $100 or getting started. We even feel afraid of investing our time, which has cost us no money. It's just cost us our time. But meanwhile, we're willing to give 40 hours a week to a job that we hate in a place that makes us completely unhappy. And so I think it's important for us to be very realistic and also extremely logical and less emotional. I think that the emotions, we can leverage that as guides to help us identify what we're moving through, but it's going to be important to overcome those emotions. And so the fear in the stock market is unlike anything I've ever experienced, except politics. I'll say that the fear of politics is even greater for me now. But the fear of navigating, prior to politics, the fear of navigating my portfolio or investing was so vast. Um, but I knew it was something I had to overcome because I started to understand the importance of the participation in the stock market.
Yeah, absolutely. Like being at the stakeholder of companies that, like, I invest based on my values. And so knowing that I can put my money in a company that supports who I am at my core, like that makes me feel good. But also one of the things that I get asked all the time, which maybe you do too, is like people want to know what is the winning stock.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yes.
wants to know that. So can we talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I think, when people ask me that, I'm very direct and just say I don't give stock tips. For legal purposes, I think also giving stock tips is one of the quickest way for your community to lose trust in you, because what a lot of people don't understand in stocks is that there is not one winning company. Sure, over time, over years, when we zoom out, we can identify some really big winners. But in the day to day, those winners are sometimes losers. If there's something going on in the macro economy, those stocks tend to lose. They can drop 20%, and then you look like the bad guy. You look like, oh, you didn't pick a winner. Also, the other thing is, we're not fortune tellers. There's so many things that take place in the market that can affect what happens to a stock, and it may not be directly pertaining to the stock. It could be pertaining to a geopolitical issue that's happening all the way across, on the other side of the world. And so it's important for us to understand that the true winner here, and the only way to win, is to actually participate. It's not necessarily to pick a winning stock, it's to be a participant, and that you will have winners and you will have losers. At the end of the day, if we were to just look at the S&P 500, which is the compilation of the top 500 most powerful companies in this country, and zoom out, we could see that America is truly the winner. We have access to these stocks. The type of uh, wealth that America has built, if we look at the numbers on GDP in comparison to other countries, nothing comes close. And so the winner is being a participant in our own country, is being an investor in the companies that we are already utilizing, not just being a consumer of these products, but making sure that we're being responsible and also participating in ownership. So, in terms of what is the stock pick and what is the winner, um, if we look at it on a day-to-day basis, there will always be the same stock will always be the loser, and the same stock will always be the winner.
I love that so much. Yeah, because I get that question asked all the time. And I was like, no, like I'll do a disservice if I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller. And it's so funny that you mentioned that because I actually, I just got back from a trip to San Diego for a Women's Inclusion Summit. And that was a big part of my presentation. I put like a fortune teller, like nobody knows, right? But
Mhm.
what you need to do is participate and also stay in it for the long term, not just
Mhm.
like pretend that, okay, I'm going to go in today and then tomorrow I'm going to get my money out. So I love that so much. Now, Linda, you talk about your kids. I think you talk about it on your podcast because I was listening to it. And I used to have a very unhealthy relationship with money personally. I used to think that, money was evil. The money wasn't for me. Like, in fact, like my parents separated because of money. So I didn't want to have anything to do with money. But now that I healed my money wounds, now that I'm participating in the stock market, obviously my relationship with money is completely different. And I hear you when you talk about your kids and how you talk about economics and investing with your children. What does that feel for you to see that your kids have such a positive and abundant relationship with money versus what you and I saw growing up?
It's so rewarding. It is the most rewarding experience because I'm getting to witness the healing of something that I got to experience as toxic. So, and my son might grow up and think that I was toxic with my own money experience. I leave room for that. I leave room for the idea that I haven't solved the problem 100%. I leave room for the idea that my household can have completely different perspectives. For all I know, my son might grow up to think my mom was, obsessed with the stock market, and he might want to move in a completely different direction. But because I open myself to the idea that he's going to have his own beliefs and my daughter's going to have her own beliefs, and that is okay. I think that that is a win in the sense that I'm not pressuring my children to do as I did or be as I did, which was also something that my mom really tried to impose on me. But the idea that my children are knowledgeable on what words mean and they're normalized, and I can have a conversation about economics and I can have a conversation about the stock market, and at least they can respond and they're not completely lost. That's the real win to me, is that these conversations have been normalized. And so, my daughter has worked through the emotions with me because she is closer in age to me. She's 29 years old. While my son, it is completely part of his vocabulary and he understands words in the market. He understands what they mean. And so that to me is a win, is the accessibility that I am providing for my children. And then they can make whatever decisions they feel is right for themselves as they grow up. But the important part is the accessibility.
Yes. And I love that so much. Like, I remember listening, I think it was on your podcast where you shared that about your son. And I was just like, oh, like the fact that these children just feel safe around money, like to me, that's like I'm already winning, right? They're gonna do whatever they want in the future, but now the safety that we provide because we became knowledgeable about the stock market and also healing our money wounds really has set the precedence for them to say like I am safe with money. And so when I listen about that on your podcast, I was just like, yes, like this feels so good. Now, earlier on the podcast, you talk about the fear of being in politics.
Mhm.
What inspired you to participate in this, by the way? Because when you announced that you were running, I was just like, wait a minute, what is she up to? Like, what inspired you to use your voice to support and elevate our community through politics?
Thank you. This is such an important question because it was, in fact, money. So, I had our current state representative, Victoria Niave Criado, ask me to consider running. And I had to make the decision within 3 hours. I had to file. The deadline to file was the following day. And so I had a very short amount of time to really think about it. And honestly, I feel like that was divine. If I was given more time, I probably would have said no. One of the most important questions I ask, and should be an important question when someone else asks us to step into a new role, is how much does this position pay, right? That's the top most important question. You have to identify whether your time is uh, is getting valued for the compensation. She told me 7,000, not a month, 7,000 for the session. We have as state representatives, we have 2-year terms. So I am going to be compensated 7,000 every other year, given that I continue to run and that I continue to be reelected. But it's a 2-term, and 7,000 is what I'm going to be compensated. I then, when I was given the time to identify if I wanted to do this or not, I quickly looked at the per capita income of the people in my community. I live in a highly populated Latino community. 63% of the community in the district that I would be representing is Latino. Now, it's really important for us to understand what the job does. So, not only what the compensation is, but what the job's responsibility is. And the responsibility of a state representative is to, yes, of course, represent its district. But in the state of Texas, we are the ones that are voting on whether a bill passes or doesn't pass. We are also the ones suggesting what bills that then turn into law should take place. So, for example, the reproductive rights ban that happened, that was in the hands of state representatives. So that's really important for us to understand that the person that makes that decision only makes $7,000 for their term. I was extremely upset. And I started to see the system working against us. How someone like myself, like you, we are not set up to participate in this process. Even at myself with my portfolio and the work that I've done on my scarcity mindset, I am not set up for the process. I truly am not. I can't divulge the wealth that I have built to just give away to this position. I am not in that space. I still have to, in fact, being in this position has, a lot of my scarcity mindset has returned because I'm now having to fundraise money. And now it's not I'm selling a service or I have a book. It's someone has to invest and believe that I'm going to do a good job, which is a very hard sell, especially as a new candidate. The reason I did it is because not only are you getting paid a little bit, but you also have to move to another city. I have to move to Austin for 5 months and sustain myself while I'm living in Austin and legislating. And I just started to think about my community and who has that time, who has that ability to do so, and who can move through the scarcity mindset that this new level requires. There's a term that is new levels, new devils. And so you think you might have mastered something and you think you might have overcome something, but when you step into a new level that is above your current level where you are in life, you encounter new experiences. And sometimes what you may learn about yourself is that there's reoccurring experiences that come into your life. I have been longer in scarcity mindset than I have been in an abundant mindset. And so naturally, those same fears of scarcity will come back. I was terrified in the beginning to fundraise money. I'm getting much more comfortable at it now. I have superseded my goal of fundraising, although I still have long ways to go. But when I understood that the ability to be in this position is not set up for us, I got really angry and I decided that I would challenge myself to step in this new space. The fear I felt was unlike any fear I have ever experienced in my entire life. And I have been in some extremely scary experiences, and it was nothing like this up level. And again, fear is my internal compass, and I stay true to that. And I told myself I would move into this direction. Worst that can happen, I learned that I never want to be a politician again, and I walk away after my term. I do my absolute best for the people I'm representing, and then I decide this isn't for me. However, the more I move into the space, the more I feel very comfortable. Now, for about 5 years prior to me stepping into this space, I had deep frustration for my current political party, which is the Democratic Party. I had deep frustration for their understanding of economics and monetary policy. That was a big frustration for me. And I would continuously vocalize how upset I would be with the Democratic Party lacking that understanding. And so I am really, while it might seem like I'm completely pivoting, and I am, my main focus when I go into office will be economics and looking at things from a monetary perspective.
And I feel that you're still talking about money and you will continue to talk about money. And thank you so much for your transparency because You talk about something that I was like, it's so true. You talk about how scarcity returns, right? The more we grow, the bigger goals that we have, it will come back. But you now have the tools to help you get clear on what is happening to you and then say, okay, this is how I feel, and these are the actions that I'm going to take. Now, I see you, and I know you have a team and you have what I call your wealthy five. Um, but who is supporting you? Because you're a mom, you're a business owner, you're an author, you're an entrepreneur. And now, in addition to that, now you're also a politician. So, who is part of your board of directors?
Yeah, so definitely my partner. So my son's father, he's a very big supporter in the sense that he believes that if I wanted to, I could be the president of the United States and no one could tell him otherwise. He believes that I can accomplish anything and there has never ever been one single doubt. So he believes way more than what I believe about myself. And so anytime that I drop into self-doubt, which I do very often I drop into self-doubt. And I think some people might not believe that, but very, very often, most especially after a big achievement, I will drop into self doubt. And he is continuously there to remind me of who I am, what I have already accomplished, and my capability of being a student and learning about what it takes to move into this next role. That is, a big supporter. And you know what? I missed something very important before him. Honestly, it is my relationship, my spiritual relationship. It is God for me, whatever that may be to someone else. For me, it is God. I am very communicative with God on a consistently. I'm communicating in the morning. I'm communicating during the day. I'm communicating as I lay my pillow, as I lay my head on my pillow. I am always in prayer. And I'm asking for protection. I'm asking for favor. I'm asking for clarity. I am constantly thinking for the roof over my head, for my family. And so that relationship is extremely important in my household. Um, and then I have a group of some really incredible women that are, Latinas. All of them are Latinas, high powered executives, high powered women that will tell me that keep it real with me. They're not yes people. One of them was like, why do you want to be a broke politician? Like, I mean, they will tell me how it is with sin pelos en la lengua, and to me, I value that. It is so important. If someone doesn't challenge me or argue with me on anything, I'm sus of them. My girlfriends will push and we'll have hard conversations, political, money wise, family wise, everything. And we may not agree, we don't agree on everything. And of course, there's some things we agree on, like the importance of our relationship. But we agree to be very strong in our opinions and our values, and we agree to respect each other. And I think that is something that we are currently lacking in our society. I think currently we are wanting for everyone to agree with us on everything, and we have zero tolerance for us disagreeing. And that is a problem.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my top, the women in my life they're just badass. I look up to them so much.
And I love that so much for you. And in fact, I have heard some Latina founders and Latina executives drop your name. And they're like, my friend Linda Garcia. And they will like literally say when they're doing reels or podcast interviews, they drop your name. And to me, that goes to show the impact that you're also having, not just in the friendship that you have with them, but also how you're inviting them to take part of the stock market, which to me is like, what a gift to have a friend like Linda Garcia. So Linda, thank you so much for your time. It has been an honor to have you. How can we support the work that you do? We're going to link your information on the show notes, also give people access to the link for buying your book. But what else can we do for Linda Garcia? Because we want to see you win.
Thank you so much. This question is so important. I really want to make a plea for if you found value in this conversation and you feel called and compelled, there's obviously more resources that I offer. I do have a podcast called Investies that's about economics and the market. I give you updates and break down terminology that may be difficult to process. There's the book, of course, but if you feel compelled, I would really like to ask you to head over to Linda for Texas, LINDAFOR, Texas.com. There is a donate button there. Even if it is just $5, $10, whatever you feel called, I would really like to ask you to contribute. As I mentioned earlier, I have nowhere near the amount of wealth of my colleagues and who I'm up against. It is so important for us that if we want to see change, if we want to see ourselves reflected, that we are actually investing in the policymakers that are going through the fire or trailblazing or being the first ones stepping out of their comfort zone, moving into scarcity, that we support them. And so if you could please send me a donation. It does not matter the size, the intention is what matters, and it's what makes things happen. I would really, really appreciate that.
Thank you, Linda. And we have some amazing listeners that love to help. So I'm very certain that you're going to get some donations through the link. Again, thank you so much for being here. It has been an honor.
Thank you for having me.